What's going on, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. It's time for Nick at Night, my weekly non-spoiler comic book review show. Hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving and a safe Black Friday. Hopefully you got some good deals out there if you went shopping. Let's go over the books I read this week. I'm going to go ahead and put my grading bar up right now. Whenever I go over a book, I'm going to put the cover of that book on the grading bar so you can see how it stacks up against the other books that week. So we're going to get into the big two first. We're going to start with some Marvel. This is issue number 17 of X-Men Proper. Pretty interesting book. I'm actually glad we're out of this whole Axe Judgment Day event right now. We can kind of get back to business at this point. So basically we have Forge going into the vault. He's got some interesting methods on how to get into the vault and how to actually navigate through there. And he's actually trying to get with Darwin, trying to save Darwin at this point. He runs across a few different things though, some things he did not expect, finding some mutants that we thought were gone, and kind of his plans has to change a little bit halfway through. It's very interesting. This is a story arc, the vault rather, that I don't really know a whole lot about. I jumped on X-Men mostly full-time around the Hickman era, and I've been trying to catch up to some of the older storylines ever since. This has got me really intrigued. It's got some interesting things around the Resurrection Protocol as well, and it's just really fun. I like what I'm seeing so far in here. Art style is okay. I'll give you a taste of what the art looks like inside of here. So we have Forge kind of hanging out in the vault, having some kind of like a realization during this particular scene here. So it's not too bad. Not too bad. If you're a longtime X-Men reader, probably, maybe not a long time, but 3-4 years perhaps, you're going to recognize some of the storylines that they're introducing in here. And it's somewhat new reader friendly in the fact that they have a lot of familiar faces and things like that in this run so far. And so you're not going to be completely lost, but yeah, I'm still trying to play catch up with what's going on in here, but this was a pretty fun issue. I'm glad I got it. Moving on to Daredevil issue number 5 from Chip Zdarsky. Got that awesome cover. It's very reminiscent of the issue 25, I think it was, when Daredevil was behind bars and Elektra kind of came to be as the she Daredevil in a way. This is a great book. I'm loving this one a lot. We're focusing more on how Daredevil and Elektra and Stick are building up the Fist, which is basically this like rivaling organization against the Hand. We know Frank Castle is kind of the demon right now, and he's becoming the Beast, and he's becoming kind of like the main person for the Hand right now. And so this is the other organization, ancient organization, that's going to kind of rise up and fight them. And so now we have Daredevil and Elektra and Stick kind of bringing that all together. Some pretty interesting things in here, some character upgrades they mention in here based on, or just because they're participating in these ancient ceremonies. So it has some pretty interesting side effects that they're heading down this path. And they're trying to grow their ranks right now, and they have a pretty interesting and creative way to do that, going someplace to see if they can kind of recruit some people. But in doing that, they get on the radar of some serious people, and we understand that towards the end of the book. So I'm definitely interested in seeing how this ends, where this goes, the kind of battles we're going to see later in the future, and how this is all going to tie in with the Punisher run and all that stuff. We're going to get a massive Clash of the Titans here pretty soon, and I can't wait for it. This is a very exciting run, especially if you're reading Punisher as well, so you're seeing it from that perspective. Then you're seeing it from Daredevil's perspective, and now we're going to kind of broaden the story a little bit and introduce some other characters that we all know and love. This is going to get very interesting very quickly. Highly recommend this one and the Punisher run from Jason Aaron. Pick up both of these. They go together very well, and it's heading in a very interesting place. So check out Daredevil if you're not. And that's actually it for Marvel. Going into DC, we have The Human Target. This is issue number 9 from Tom King and Greg Smallwood. This is another great issue. It does have Batman on the cover. This is supposed to be like our Batman issue. Very little, if at all, any Batman in the story. So there's a little bit of a disappointment, little bait and switch there from my perspective. But with that said, it is an interesting story. We are 9 days into this countdown for Christopher Chance's here's death. He's been poisoned. Someone was trying to assassinate Lex Luthor, but were they really? Who was the poison? Who was the person who got the poison together? Was it really meant for our human target here? Was it meant for Lex Luthor? We're uncovering all this still. So he's reaching out to all these different people, trying to investigate essentially his own murder. And we are to the point now where Batman's inevitably going to be involved. And this is a pretty interesting issue because it really shows you how much Batman is feared in this universe. We have Christopher Chance here. He's very resourceful. He's been there. He's done that. Lots of experience. And even he is scared to death of Batman and his tactics and his abilities. admitting even in here that Batman is better than him. And so it's really an issue about this paranoia, this kind of like obsession that Christopher has for Batman. Is he behind me? Where is he? How is he going to strike? He would have thought about this and that and this. He's always one step ahead. This is very much a paranoia issue, and it really plays through as you read the book. You can see how he's kind of getting into his head a lot in here. And so I'll give you a little sample of that Greg Smallwood art. Gorgeous as always. Really loving that. Ice is in here as well. She's breathtaking. She's a great supporting character in this run. Extremely useful when she needs to be. She adds this other layer to it, to the story, which is great. It kind of gives Christopher something to bounce off of and give him meaning in his remaining days. And so it's just been a really fun series so far. Not a book that has a lot of the things that Tom King gets criticized for in it. So if you're not reading this because you're just not a fan or you don't like the way that he handles stories in the past, this is a book you can read. It doesn't really fall in those same traps. So give this one a chance. It's actually really good. Next DC book we read this week was DC versus Vampires issue number 11 from Tynan and Rosenberg's on this one. Got that great Zerdy cover with Harley on there. And so this is basically our issue where kind of all the plans are coming together. We have different factions of heroes all over the place. We have our Bat family and some of the other ancillary characters in Gotham taking the fight right to them. And then we have some other folks like Steel and Supergirl and whatnot, and they're off into different areas right now, and they're actually infiltrating different really important bases for the vampires. And they're uncovering a little bit more about how they're operating right now and who they're using to kind of get what they need done. And so basically we're trying to get to a point where we can get Supergirl powered back up. She's been depowered at the moment. The sun's being blocked, something's going on. And so they're trying to attack from that front and attack head on in Gotham. And there's some really creative and really cool team ups throughout the way. The art is really crazy. It's very sketchy looking. Let me give you a little preview of what that looks like in here without giving away too much of the stuff going on in here. This is a really cool shot right here of the Bat family and other people just kind of going to town, taking out these vampires. Very cool run. Again, I've said this before. I like these DC events that are kind of like apocalyptic and monsterish, like these Deceased, DC versus Vampires. Very cool. Gives the B, C, D level heroes and villains a chance to shine, do what they do best. Very cool run. I am personally pumped about how this issue ends and where we're going to go in the next issue. I have a feeling there's going to be some great ass kicking going on, and it's a character I love, and I can't wait to see them back up in full strength. This is going to be a cool ending. Check it out. Next DC book we read this week was Sergeant Rock versus the Army of the Dead, issue number 3 of 6. Just again, another little fun read. Bruce Campbell's on this book. It's a nice wartime book right here. We have the Nazis essentially resurrecting the dead, using these zombies to fill their ranks back in. And we have the U.S. Squad right here. They understand what's going on. They're trying to attack their supply lines and trying to disrupt this stuff so they can't get out of control with this and build up their ranks. So basically we have this squad of guys that are very well equipped at this point, kind of hitting the supply areas. And they're actually trying to target Hitler's doctor at this moment, because his doctor is actually feeding Hitler, of course, all of his drugs and things like that. And so they're trying to attack that supply line as well. Very cool, very simple, very straightforward, fun little art style. Again, very simple, but it really works for this time period and this subject matter. So it is pretty awesome. It's only 6 issues. It's a fun read. It's extremely quick. It's interesting. It's more like Halloween based because it has to do with like monsters and things like that. And we're rolling into Christmas. So it's like, it's a little bit out of season in my opinion, but still pretty interesting. I'd recommend it. The last DC book we read this week was Detective Comics 1066 from Ram V. And of course, we had a backup story from Cy Spurrier as well. This is a Batman that's a little bit more supernatural in a way. It's a little bit more obscure, not quite as grounded as some of the other Batman books. We essentially have a very old, ancient family that had some kind of ownership with Gotham. They are now trying to reclaim it. There's some ties to like the Lazarus Pits and Talia al Ghul and things like that. And so they're coming back to kind of take what's theirs, and they're trying to kind of assess what kind of a city Gotham is at this point, trying to mess with some of the villains in here, trying to take tabs on Bruce Wayne himself. And they're speaking about how they're going to take back the city, first destroying Arkham. I'm sure there's layers and layers of stuff going on here that I just need to like sit down and kind of think about and maybe reread some of these issues. Pretty interesting. The art is really cool in this book. That's one of the very strong points in here. So if you want some more of a supernatural or surreal Batman, a little bit different flavor, a little bit less grounded than the Batman we have now. Then you might want to check out this run right here. It's pretty great, and it's very complimentary to what we have so far in the latest Batman run with Chip Zdarsky. It's just a different flavor, a different feel. It's bringing some villains that we haven't really seen lately back into the forefront. And Batman, as Bruce Wayne as Batman's going to have to figure out a lot of things, maybe not able to take on this threat the way that he would normally take on a threat. And so the roots go deep with this one. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens in here. It leaves on a pretty awesome cliffhanger. The Cy Spurrier backup story is extremely trippy. It's more centered on Two-Face. Amazing art style as well. So if you're into those kinds of things, check out the backstory as well. It's worth it. That's actually for the big two. We're going to go into some indie books first. We're going to go into Boom Studios' Stuff of Nightmares, issue number 3 from R.L. Stine. And we have A.L. Kaplan, and we have that Francavilla cover. Those covers are absolutely gorgeous. Love picking all those up. Again, it's a little bit out of season, now that we're going into the Christmas time. But it's still an interesting run. It's a very quick read. It's a very simple story. We basically have like a reanimator situation. We got these brothers. One's more of like a twisted scientist, and he's, swapping brains and bodies and things like that and piecing together monsters. And that's what he's really trying to do. The other brother's kind of there, kind of like for moral support in a way. And then we have this female character they're kind of both in love with, and they're trying to battle that as well. It feels like every single issue someone's getting killed instantly, and it's just like, oh, it was an accident, but then they harvest their body parts to build whatever monster they're trying to build at that time. And, it's okay. And we definitely have like an Egon kind of situation going on right here. Like this guy totally looks like Egon. He's one of the brothers. So I noticed that every time I see him, I'm like, oh man, I feel like this is the Ghostbusters all over again. But it's a pretty straightforward story. There's nothing really exciting going on here. I'm getting it because of the covers, and it's an R.L. Stine book. And it's somewhat fun. It's not mind-blowing or breathtaking or anything like that. Again, we're fading out of this right now, this Halloween kind of theme, this horror kind of theme. And I don't know how many issues this is. It might be 5, and that would be perfectly okay with me. And I feel like that would be an appropriate length for a story like this. But it's okay. It's not bad. Cool covers. Great artist, great writer. I was just going to check it out for that reason. Let me know what you think. The next book we read this week was a book that I was really looking forward to from Jason Aaron. We have Once Upon a Time at the End of the World from Boom Studios. This is issue number 1. It was a great little book here, man. So we basically have this apocalyptic situation, and we have two sides of it. We have the one side where this little boy was growing up with his family. They were hunkered down in a secure place. The world all kind of went to shit, and this kid's been in isolation the entire time. And then on the other side, we have this girl that kind of has been through it all. The group that she was with was wiped out. She's been surviving on her own, fighting monsters, fighting other humans, fighting whatever, the terrain, the environment, this entire time. And this is the meeting. This is the clash of those two people. So, you have this like ruthless, violent, do whatever you can do to get by kind of a personality meeting this like, I'm in a safe place kind of a thing. And oh my God, I haven't seen anybody. And this is so exciting. I want to be your best friend kind of situation. And it's just a great dynamic between the two. The dialogue is hilarious. The art's pretty fun too. And it really takes a moment to explain exactly what's going on in here. I like the pacing of this book and just how the paneling all works out. It's capturing all these little tiny moments that add up to be a complete scene. You know what I mean? There's no jump or assumptions you need to make between panels and pages. It kind of walks you through the scene very effortlessly. And that has a lot to do with the writing and of course the art in here. And so I just love what's going on. I love what's going on in this book. It was a very charming story. We got a really great opening scene and introduction with the characters. The end of the book, the last like 2 pages is a big fat flash forward, and it's like a complete apocalyptic, complete hell on earth kind of situation. And takes one of the characters we met and kind of flips it a little bit. It's super exciting. So check this book out. Great number 1, highly anticipated number 2. Check it out. The next book we read was from Merc Comics. This is Born of Blood, that local comic shop day comic right here. Went ahead and picked this one up because I heard it was pretty decent, and it's limited 2,000. But it was one of those interesting covers. I'm like, okay, I'll check it out and see what's going on. But basically, it's a story about Sparta. We have some warriors kind of growing up. We have the king right now whose wife is expecting, and they actually deliver a little girl instead of a boy. And in this particular warrior type race, a boy would be a little bit more desired at that moment. So he has to kind of make do with what he was given. So basically, it's about how this little girl was growing up, how she grows up in this warrior-based society. And, essentially how she will be, in a way, useful to that kind of a society. So it kind of goes through, it's a little bit brutal here and there. It's one of those books where they have a little bit of risque stuff from time to time, and but it's not too over the top, but it does happen. But with that said, it's actually a pretty interesting book. She actually ends up like leading the way for this real secret mission that was very successful, and because of that, they're kind of rose back up into power right now, or at least to a power that everybody fears in the region. So it was a pretty fun book. I'll give you a sneak peek of the art in here. Again, it is a little risque from time to time, but it is a fun story nonetheless. And so if I can get my hands on the other issues, I'll probably check them out because this one was actually pretty fun. Did you get this one? What'd you think? Let me know down below. Next book we read from AWA Upshot, Peter Milligan's Sacrament. This is issue number 4. We're going to be wrapping up this series pretty soon, and you can tell from the story, the progress, the pacing of it is kind of getting to the point now where we're kind of getting our strength back. How are we going to fight this ancient evil and perform this exorcism with the resources we have, with the faith that we have left in our priest right now? As I mentioned before, we have our main priest here who failed in an exorcism when he was younger. When he was working with a much older, more mature priest, he ended up dying in that situation, and he's grown up kind of on the edge of faith ever since. He's been kind of going through the motions, not really believing anymore. And now he's called upon years later to exorcise this same demon again, who's very much aware of their past together. And how does he kind of pull it all together? And who can he call to his side to perform this action? And this book really kind of explores that over the last 4 issues. So, the art is kind of hauntingly beautiful in here as well. The subject matter is very heavy. We have all these other powers behind the scenes too, thinking they can wipe it out with some kind of technology. But you're going to have to go the spiritual route to get rid of these kinds of demons. And we're learning all that in here as well. So looking forward to the conclusion of this. It's a pretty good run so far. It's only about 5 issues, so I would recommend it if you can get the trade. It's a good trade weight, I think. It's been pretty fun, though. I'm glad I got the single issues. Check it out. We're going to wrap it up with 2 books from Image Comics. One of them is Vanish. This is issue number 3 from Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman. Very interesting, very cool book. It's got this layer of storytelling or vibe or feel that just only Donny Cates can provide. And of course, Ryan Stegman has taken his time and is doing some outstanding work in this book, especially with some of these quick motion scenes. It's really kind of breathtaking, how he's able to do some of this stuff. Props to the coloring team as well. And the inking done on here. I think it's definitely a collaborative effort for sure to kind of put these pages here. But you can really tell a maturity or maybe just a slowing down for Ryan Stegman on here. The art is really, really crazy. But essentially we have our Vanish character here. He's actually hunting down people of the Hollow. The Hollow is kind of like this ancient cult that he was taking on back in the day. They're kind of disguising themselves right now as heroes. So it's kind of like the superheroes that we're used to were really part of an evil cult back in the day. And so we had our main character here kill their leader. And this is many, many years later. He's noticing that these people still exist and he needs to kind of finish the job and take them out. And of course, everyone that he's running into is kind of pretending oh no, we're not the bad guys anymore. That was a long time ago. They are very much the bad guys. So we're actually fighting 2 different people right here. This one character has super fast speed. He's kind of getting his butt kicked, but he gets the upper hand. He learns their tactics, things like that, and takes advantage of some of her mistakes. But then, all of a sudden her partner shows up and the tables kind of turn a little bit as well. So it's a very interesting run. A lot of cool little battles here and there. It has this kind of simple indie vibe to it. Here and there as you're reading it, but then you actually realize that it has a lot of depth to it. There's a lot of things going on. I'm interested to see how far we're going to go with this series and with the lore behind all these characters. Right now we're getting just enough to kind of keep things interesting, and lots of action for sure. And the ending of this book is pretty shocking. We got an introduction to a new, presumably villain at the end here who looks very, very formidable. And so I can't wait to continue this book. It's a very, very fun read from these 2 guys. I'm glad I made it to print. It started over in Substack with the creation of it at least. Very cool, interesting read so far. Check it out. The last book we read this week was 8 Billion Genies, issue number 6 from Charles Scholl. And you can really tell that he sat down and storyboarded this out. He almost had to create this universe and think about all these different scenarios before he even wrote it, because this is a really tricky subject. If you get everybody in the world a genie, give everybody a genie and let them go wild, there's going to be a lot of weird situations and conflicting wishes and how does death work? If I wish for something and I die, does it disappear? What happens if I wish for something and somebody else wishes for the opposite? Whose counts? Does that even matter? So there's a lot of just weird things in this story that you would have to consider if you're going to write this the right way, the correct way. And I really think he did that for sure. The genies are also used as kind of a way of explaining the world. When they're attached to somebody, they can actually ask genies questions all the time, and the genies will just give them an answer and explain how things work. And so that was a really fun thing to know as well. And again, it just kind of reiterates the fact that he took his time to figure all this out. And so the book is definitely interesting. It's got a lot of shocking moments in here. We're touching base with all the people we were introduced to in the first part of the story in the bar. So we're kind of seeing where all those different people are right now. Most of them have left the bar. They're doing their own thing, and this is kind of a catch-up issue. But with that said, it's definitely not without its surprises and just progression in general. Man, Ryan Brown's artwork is just absolutely crazy in this book as well. Every single page, there's some crazy crap going on. And this is actually a book that took a little bit of time to read. There's a lot of dialogue, a lot of things going on. It felt larger than usual, and it's got an interesting ending right now too. So I can't wait to see how this story ends. I'm sure it's going to be wrapping up here pretty soon, potentially at issue number 8, I would imagine, because it's following that 8 billion pattern right there. So we'll see what's going on. Very, very cool book. Check this one out for sure. So that's everything I read, and those were my thoughts. I appreciate you watching the video. If it's your first time here, please consider hitting that sub button and that like button as well. As a reminder, not only do I do content here on YouTube, but I also go on Instagram as well. So give me a follow if you haven't yet. But as always, I appreciate you watching the video. We'll see you all down in the comments.